We'll call to order the July 14th special meeting of the State Board of Education. We are going to begin this morning with a roll call since we have several members that are joining us by Zoom.
Ms. Dean?
Here.
Dr. Rankin?
Here.
Dr. Hill? Ms. Woods? Ms. Woods?
She was going to be out today.
Out today, okay. Dr. Moore?
Here.
Ms. Newton?
Here.
Mr. Sutton?
Can you call me Dr. Sutton just for once?
Dr. Sutton?
Here.
And Ms. McFetridge or Dr. McFetridge, whichever she prefers.
I'm here, thank you.
Okay,
right.
we have a quorum, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and we're glad that you're joining us, whichever way that you are joining us, Dr. or Mr. or Mrs., we're all glad you're here. We're going to begin this morning with a moment of silence so we can kind of focus on why we're here and making sure that we're doing, making good decisions and doing a good job. Join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. All right. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. Then our action agenda, the first item is a school choice appeal, the Helms family.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. The first school choice hearing is the Helms family. And Madam Chair, I have Miss Sergeant Crystal Currington on the Zoom. Miss Currington, do you mind turning the mute off? Can you hear me, Ms. Currington?
I can hear you.
Good to see you, Sergeant. And Ms. Barbara Warren, Superintendent of Pine Bluff School District. I know she was attending via Zoom. I saw her log in. Superintendent Warren, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good morning, Superintendent Warren. And I also have Mr. Doug Doors here of the Whitehall School District. And so we got everybody present. I'm going to go through, Madam Chair, real briefly, the rules and procedures for these hearings. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be an opportunity school choice. The resident district is Dollarway School District, but now Pine Bluff School District. And since they're in level 5 intensive support, and the non-resident district, ma'am, is Whitehall School District. All persons wishing to testify before the State Board of Education shall first be placed under oath by the chairperson of the State Board of Education. Each party shall have the opportunity to present an opening statement of no longer than 5 minutes, beginning with the non-resident district. The chairperson of the State Board of Education may, for good cause shown and upon the request of either party, allow either party additional time to present their opening statements. Each party will be given 20 minutes to present their cases, beginning with the non-resident district. The chairperson of the State Board of Education may, for good cause shown and upon request of either party, allow either party additional time to present their cases. The State Board of Education, at discretion, shall have the authority to require any person associated appear in person before the State Board of Education as a witness during the hearing. The State Board of Education may accept testimony by affidavit, declaration, or deposition. Every witness may be subject to questioning by the State Board. The non-resident district shall have the burden of proof by proving the basis of the denial of the transfer. The State Board of Education may sustain the rejection of the non-resident district or grant the appeal. And the board may announce their decision today, or they can take it under advisement if need be. So, Madam Chair, if I may, if I could get Ms. Warren, Mr. Doris, and Sergeant Currington sworn in.
Okay. All right. Would you please? Yes, go ahead.
Just before we get into that, I want the record to reflect that Ms. Post is on as well. I failed to call her name in the roll call, and I apologize, Ms. Post, for that, but she is present.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So would you all stand and raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
I do.
And Madam
Okay,
Chair,
thank you.
This one is an opportunity school choice case,
Okay.
so the 3% does not matter in this case. The denial was based on capacity, which is allowed under the law. I'll let Mr. Doris give a little more information about that. But this student is third grade student, and the district has reached their 95% capacity for that district. So that's the reason for the denial. But unless there's any further questions, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to the non-resident district, which is Mr. Doris.
Okay, Mr. Doris? Good morning.
Good morning, how y'all doing?
All right.
The young lady applied for school choice, an opportunity. She was number 9 on our list. We accepted 7 students, put us at our capacity. Mom came back at a later time. I think y'all have an email saying that she's in the military service. And she was on duty, according to her email, starting in May 1st, going through August 7th. I'm well aware that it's military that she could get in. Again, we were at capacity at that time. Just like I spoke to y'all last week and told you we're probably going to have to add a teacher, and I had to add a 3rd grade teacher last night at our school board meeting. So I'm not at capacity, but the problem is that position is at Hardin Elementary. They live on Hardin Reed Road. I'm going to give you some directions at the further south part of our district. Well, it's not in our district. It has Whitehall mailing address, but it's Whitehall because of 911. Hardin is at our northern point, close to Pulaski County line. We do not provide transportation, but we do have a spot available at Hardin Elementary if the parent chose to do it, and if y'all, that's what y'all decide to do.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Warren? Ms. Warren?
Yes.
Do you have anything that you want to say or add?
It's my position that we will be happy to educate Kaylin. We respect the opportunity of school choice, that option, and we submit to your decision.
All right. Thank you. Sergeant Currington,
Yes, ma'am.
do you have something that you would like to tell us this morning?
I'm glad to be here this morning. I'm actually here at training, and I just want to say that I appreciate any opportunity that is given for my daughter. I do know that the school of choice of her attending Whitehall School District would be a great benefit for me because I have to report to Hazen, Arkansas every day at 07 in the morning. And I know if she attends Darloway, it'll be hard on me to get her there, and plus to try to be at work on time. And with her attending the Pine Bluff Arsenal Child Care Development Center, the director out there, Ms. Amber Weaver, she stated that they have a transportation service there that actually can provide for them to send Kaylin to Whitehall School District and for them to pick her up, and for me to be able to still be at work at a decent time, and for me to still be able to leave at 3:30 every day and not have to worry about somebody being able to pick her up, because I had a good family care plan at the time, but now my family care plan has left and they live out of state now. So it's just me, and I'm trying to do the best that I can with me being a full-time service member. And I want to continue to service, but if I'm currently having issues, it's kind of putting me at a position to where I don't know exactly where I will be to further my career in the military if I can't provide a certain service to get my children here and there every day and still be able to maintain my job.
Thank you. We appreciate your challenges, and most of all, we appreciate your service, and we want you to know that this morning. I'm going to open it up and let the board, do any of the districts have anything else they would like to add? Okay.
She spoke about the bus situation at the daycare. The bus there, to my knowledge, does not go to Hardin Elementary.
Okay, so she
she
would have
to work some other type of transportation out. We do not, we don't provide
The-
transportation.
Sorry.
Okay.
And-
Sergeant, did you have something there?
So my daughter, the school opens up at 6:15 every morning, and they actually they take the children from their facility to the White House School District, and they actually pick the children up every day and take them back to the facility until the parents are able to pick them up at 5:30 every day.
Do you know which school they take them to from the daycare?
They take them to the White House School District. Any school in the White House School District, they take.
Any schools in the White House School District?
Yes, ma'am. I actually provided a statement with Ms. Amber, the director, with my file. I added that memorandum actually stating that they actually do provide within the White House School District. Any school district out of the White House School District, they do not provide transportation to take their kids to school and to pick them up and bring them back to the facilities until the parents are capable of picking them up at 5:30 every day.
Okay, all right, thank you.
May I clarify, Hardin is part of the White House School District. It's one of our 4 elementaries, but it is the furthest point north in our district.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, go ahead.
Just to clarify, so Sergeant, I think what you're saying is that it's that facility, that center that provides the transportation, not the Whitehall. Whitehall doesn't run a bus by there. It's that
No,
facility
sir.
that'll actually run a van or something to transfer the kids that are there to whatever school in Whitehall they need to be at every school day. Is that
No,
correct?
sir, there isn't a bus that goes to our house to pick up the children. We actually have to take our children to the facility at the Pine Bluff Arsenal, and it's just like they have an after-school program to where they actually take the children and they're there and they take them to school at 8 o'clock every day, drop each and every last one of the children off to school, and they pick them up every day at 3:30. I'm not for sure exactly what time school is out there, but they pick them up every day and bring them back to the facility until we're all able to come and pick up our children after work.
But the your facility provides that transportation, not the district?
Yes, ma'am. The facility, the Pine Bluff Arsenal Child Development Center provides that transportation. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dugan, I have a question for you. Oh, you have something else?
I think Mr. Morris still has concern with
I
that.
just don't want him to have to come back and repeat
Right.
this whole process again. To my knowledge, the facility she's talking to about at the Arsenal does not go to Hardin.
Okay,
It goes to the 3 in the
In the-
actual city limits.
okay,
They do not go out there. And I just
All right.
want to make sure of that.
okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dugan, if we were to grant this appeal, could we put some sort of stipulation that it would be granted where that the child would go to a school that did have the transportation to the Arsenal?
You know, all the rules say, it just says the board may grant or deny the appeal, and so, Lori, as far as, would that be allowed stipulation? For the social, emotional, or physiological well-being of the child, so, do you think stipulations are allowed within though, Lori? They're saying that grant the appeal on the condition that the transportation, because the rules just say may grant or deny the appeal.
To go to an elementary school that did have that particular transportation provided?
Lori Freno, so my understanding of your question is not, this is not going to be a conditional grant, it's just going to be a grant with the stipulation that the child be allowed to go to one of the schools where the child will be transported by the military.
Yes.
I think, even though the social, emotional, and so forth language is not included in the Opportunity School Choice Act, it analogously is there, because we even have the same form for both opportunity and regular school choice. This board has before, basically placed a child even though there was not sufficient capacity.
Okay.
So consistently, I think, yes, there could be a stipulation attached that the child would have to go to one of the elementary schools where the military can transport the child.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Doris, you have something else you'd like to add, or? Okay,
I hate to be a pain,
okay,
but, there's rules that are established by the state of Arkansas. We're doing our very best to follow those rules. If we don't abide by the rules that the state of Arkansas has passed down, then I have to deal with the higher ups. I don't know if there's any higher than y'all, but we are at capacity. I'm looking right now having to hire 2 teachers, plus we had a teacher pass away last Friday as a result of COVID.
I'm sorry.
And so, you know, I'm not trying to give you a sad story or whatever, but we go by the rules. Exactly what the rule says. And again, please don't take me being disrespectful. But I sat here last week and I was very disappointed. And I know y'all got a job to do, just like I've got a job to do. But when I'm sitting there and knowing that I've had to hire extra teachers, and I have one, right now, we went over by 1 kid at Hardin Elementary. So I've got to hire another teacher for a 3rd grade class. So I've got 1 kid. Sure, we're going to bust those classes up and spread them out. Now, we're talking about elementary. And I think I've got one more hearing coming up later on. Now, we're talking about secondary. Once you get into 6th grade and you go through the 12th grade, then we're talking about another situation. We could actually have to hire 6 teachers, or you have starburst them and pay the teachers an extra stipend for giving up their conference period because that would exceed their 150 students. We're that close on some of our classes. And so I hope y'all will take that into consideration. I mean, we do have a place available for the child at Hardin Elementary, but again, according to the state rules, we do not have to provide transportation.
Right.
So I just want to make sure. Thank you. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
That's fine. Well, that's why you're here this morning, is we want to hear from all sides, and we appreciate that very much. Dr. Rankin, do you have questions this morning? Dr. Rankin?
I still remember, I do, sorry, I think there's a bit of a delay on my Zoom. Sorry about that. I did have a question for the superintendent, and this just goes to, I appreciate you being here today and giving us, a little bit of your background, the situation that you're facing. We certainly appreciate the perspective that you bring to this. My question has to do again with what you brought up last week about the 100 houses that are being built and this influx of capacity. I mean,
Yes,
it sounds like to me the district is preparing for additional students to come in anyway. So we wouldn't necessarily be talking about 1 or 2 students here or there, but if you have 100 houses under construction, isn't the district preparing for that increased capacity in the short-term future anyway?
Again, those 100 houses that are being built, a lot of them didn't stop because of COVID, because lumber prices went so high they stopped building. The area that look like we might have to add more teachers. Now we're talking about only elementary is going to be in the Hardin area because that is one of our smallest schools, and we only have like 2 teachers in each one of the buildings. We're adding now the possibility to add another teacher at our next board meeting to get up to 3 in kindergarten and 3rd grade.
Okay.
But we are prepared, if we have to hire extra teachers. But right now, I mean, have y'all looked at the job market as far as teachers, who's available? There's only one person that we know of that is available right now that is certified to teach in elementary. And I'm looking for an art teacher, and there's not an art teacher that we can find. And if y'all can find one, I'd appreciate y'all calling and let me know.
Anything else, Dr. Rankin?
I think those are my questions for now. I certainly appreciate Sergeant Currington being here today, and I know I'm still leaning toward approving this waiver or approving this appeal for her to be able to choose the school of her choice for her child. But I do want the superintendent to hear that we do hear where you are coming from as well. I mean, I do want you to know that we hear that and your concerns from that standpoint. But I know I'm still leaning toward granting the appeal for Sergeant Currington.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Moore?
Sorry, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a question for Mr. Dugan. Under the Opportunity School Choice, there is a section that does allow some funding for transportation, is that correct?
That's correct. What it says is
Okay.
the receiving public school or school district may, so there's a may there, may transport students to and from the transferring public school or school district, and the cost of transporting students shall be the responsibility of the transferring public school or school district except as provided under sections of these rules. So the receiving district may, but they don't have to.
Okay,
They have the
Okay.
ability to, but yeah, it's not required.
okay. Thank you for that
Yes, ma'am.
clarification. That's all the questions I have today.
Okay. Mr. Sutton?
No questions.
Okay. Ms. McFetters?
Yes, as a longtime school board member, a lot of times you'll have students on a roster at the beginning of the school year that don't show up. And so that leaves a space or spaces for students to come in. And maybe we can hear from the superintendent on that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. If y'all were to agree to let her go to Hardin Elementary, and if that situation was to come up, we would notify the parent and we would offer a child to come down to one of the Whitehall schools. But right now, it looks like all of them are coming back, and plus more.
Anything else, Ms. McFetters?
No, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Steen?
First, let me say thank you, Sergeant Currington, for being here today with us, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for supporting us.
You're welcome. Thank you for being an advocate for your child and doing everything that you can ensure that your child receives the best education possible. To Superintendent, I hear, no, you're fine, you can sit there. I hear what you're saying, and I understand the dilemma that you're in. But for me, there are a few things that are helping me to make my decision. One, that you said that you've already hired a teacher at Hardin.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have room there. Two, there's an official letter from the Department of the Army, and I'll read it out loud for everyone to hear. It says, Memorandum for Sergeant Crystal Currington. Is it okay for me to read this out loud? Okay. Subject, Kaylin Helms. The Pine Bluff Arsenal Child and Youth Services transports children to and from the Whitehall School District. It says the Whitehall School District. Before and after school programs. Child and Youth Services current hours of operation are 17:15, Monday through Friday, with being closed every other Friday to meet soldiers and Department of Defense mission. Sergeant Currington currently utilizes our services for her son and daughter. Her son is in our Child Development Center, and her daughter is in our summer program for school age. So, and it's signed Amber Jo Weber, Outreach Services Director, School Liaison Officer. So that is an official letter with the seal from the Department of Defense that lets me know that they will transport her children from Whitehall School District.
Okay.
Thank you. I was unaware of that.
Yes. So hopefully that puts your mind at ease, because
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
that's what puts my mind at ease. So to Sergeant Currington, if you are you willing to, for your child to go to Hardin Elementary?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so for me, that makes me decide that I want to grant the appeal. Since there is room, you wouldn't have to hire another teacher. There's transportation. Looks like she's got everything worked out for her child, so.
Thank you for
You're
your research.
welcome, no problem. So, as I said before that, so when the proper time, I'll be ready for a motion, but thank you for being here. Thank you, Superintendent Warren, for being here as well.
Dr. Hill?
I'm just happy that we can come to some agreement for the best for the student, and I applaud what you're doing. I mean, it's obvious that you got a great education going, and you know what you're doing is tremendous, and it's a good problem to have. I've been as an administrator. You happen to make those budgetary decisions, which you're the one have to stay up and figure out how you're gonna do it. I've been a part of boards where it's kind of like seagulls; they fly in and fly out, and we want to make sure that we support you and don't diminish the quality of the educational programs you're trying to offer. And we understand that. I mean, the teacher crisis is real. I mean, it's United States of America. You wouldn't think that what we've come to, and we have to do a greater value of empowering and placing great value on teacher education, which I know the commissioner's doing, the very best he possibly can. But when I sit here, my decision when I do it, I think of two things. Okay, I'm an administrator and I'm a parent. All right, now if I was in your shoes, I know I'd be thinking the same way as you think, because I had to stop enrollment at one point and say we got too many kids, and my kid can't come because of their capacity. But then I thought about that parent. I had to sit there and say, well, they can come next semester. But what they're gonna do this semester? So I applaud that for what you're doing, and I just hope from a standpoint from support that Commissioner, State Secretary of Education, all the titles you hold, that we find ways we can support our choice that we're having. And I know you're trying to do that to the very best of our ability, because when we voted choice in, then all these other things come with it that we have to look at. But from a parent standpoint, I know I would feel better knowing that my child was in a school district that I chose for them, that I wanted them to be in, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and Dr. Hill, just to respond, I mean, I think we do work very closely with the districts when they go over. There's opportunities now that they can get waivers from things that they didn't have. As was testified in the last board meeting, that gets a little more difficult when you're talking about high school. A lot easier when you're talking about elementary, because you're talking about one teacher for a grade versus maybe 6 teachers to cover the high school situation. So there's flexibility. We do work closely to make sure they don't run afoul, and the fact that our new standards for accreditation system is something that is we can look at it at that time to see where they might be having trouble, and can help the district find solutions to their problems so that they don't end up with some type of violation. And then the funding too, the growth funding part for a growing district like Whitehall, the growth funding aspect is very important, very critical, because it does acknowledge that the need to hire those positions and support staff sometimes. So, yes, sir. Yeah.
Any other questions from board members? Mr. Doris, I have one more question for you, if you don't mind. You said that this person was 7 out of 9 on the, I know this was 9 and you'd already granted 7.
Yes, ma'am.
If you hire another teacher at Hardin, are you going to open that up to some of those that you had to deny? Or
To my knowledge, I'm going to have to go back to Commissioner Key on this. The deadline, I believe, is May 1st that people could apply. If I could step back over and get some numbers,
Sure.
I'd like to share some. And I do want to say this, I appreciate what y'all are going through, and Commissioner Key has always been very supportive of us, and I've called him several times, and he's always worked with us. We had a total of 15 students that applied in the 3rd grade. And, of course, those were denied. We just didn't have room. But again, thank y'all.
Well, I was just wondering, since they were denied, if you now have capacity because you've hired a teacher, if those could be accepted. I didn't know how that, if you could do that.
I'm going to help Doug with this one.
Okay.
I don't, I mean, if a district wanted to do that, I'm not sure that it's even, because at that point, the timeline of the process is over. The deadline for application and the deadline for filing an appeal has been passed. And then I think a district would run afoul of, if nothing else, being a good neighbor if they go in and start calling those families and saying, hey, we've got room for you now, and you got Ms. Warren, or you got Watson Chapel, or you got somebody there saying, wait a minute. Okay. Then they would have a reason to be upset with Mr. Doris. So I think that's not a...
That makes sense, okay.
Yeah, I don't think we would really encourage that.
Okay, all right. So that was my question, and he answered it. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to have about 10 more to help pay for that teacher.
Yeah, that was what I was trying to help you out with, but, okay. All right. Yeah, I know, okay. All right, so I don't think we have any more questions, and I want to tell Ms. Dean how much I appreciate her reading that letter. That really cleared lots of things up, so thank you for doing that. And I think you said you were ready with a motion.
I move that we grant the appeal for Kaylin Helms.
I second.
Okay, a motion by Ms. Dean, seconded by Dr. Hill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations, Sergeant Currington. We want to tell you how much that we appreciate your service and your dedication, because we know that not only you serve, but your whole family serves, and we appreciate so much what you do for us each day, so thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Newton, just as to advise you all, there is a bit of a lag today with our bandwidth. The team is on it, trying to figure out if that's something that can be fixed and how to fix it. But just know that our folks out there may be hearing a delay, and then a delay coming back when they respond.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, Mr. Dugan, we have another school choice appeal. Thank you. The Morrow family.
Madam Chair, our next school choice appeal is going to be with the Morrow family, and I have Ms. Caitlin Morrow here representing her daughter Elizabeth. I saw Mr. Jace Roberts of Malvern School District log in earlier today. Jace, can you hear me?
I can.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Roberts. And Mr. Hollister, I'd spoken with him the other day. I know he's out of training today. He's with the non-resident district, Glen Rose. And I know Ms. Morrow got to speak with him also. Mr. Hollister, can you hear me?
I don't see him.
Hear me now?
There's
There
Mr.
he is.
Hollister.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
I'm here. Thank you.
Madam Chair, the procedures for, this is a Public School Choice Act case. So this one is a denial based on the 3% cap. And the procedures are similar to Opportunity School Choice. So just to summarize, 5-minute opening, starting with the non-resident district for all the parties, and then 20 minutes for each side. And if there's any questions, I know because there's so many different types of school choice, I'm happy to entertain questions. But if not, I'd ask the Madam Chair for you to swear Ms. Morrow in, Mr. Roberts, and Mr. Hollister in.
Okay. All right. If you all would raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do.
Thank you.
I do.
All right. Mr. Holliker, I believe we begin with you.
Thank you. My name is Tim Holliker. I'm superintendent of schools at Glen Rose, and we would be happy to have Elizabeth at our school. Like I said, we'll treat her just like one of ours. We have no problem accepting this child.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Roberts?
Good morning. I will to add to Mr. Key, we do have a little bit of delay out here, so if I'm a little slow responding, that there is a little lag. This is a issue where we have met our 3% cap. This is a kindergarten student who has not attended Glen Rose yet. We would love the opportunity to educate the student and show the student and family all that we have to offer. We have a great elementary school. I can speak to it very passionately. I just had a kindergartner myself go through there. He had a great first year and is looking forward to first grade. And again, we would just like the opportunity to provide quality kindergarten year to Elizabeth. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Ms. Mora.
Elizabeth actually has attended.
Can you come real close to the microphone, because we've got a lot of people that are on Zoom and they won't be able to hear you unless you get real close.
Okay. Elizabeth has actually attended Glen Rose, just the preschool. I know it's not a big deal preschool, but for her, she's been through a lot at a young age. I just got out of an abusive relationship. She's lost her father. He's currently in ADC custody. So she had to do a lot to adapt to going to school and being away from me after that. And I've went to Glen Rose myself, and so I know the teachers personally. I actually graduated with Mr. Holliker's sons, so it's just one of those, I feel comfortable where she is. I also turned in some of her progress reports with my appeal, just showing that she did so well, and I think it was due to the small school size, just the teacher to student ratio. She was able to connect with her teachers and learn more, because she's really hard to focus in on. She's all about everything, so just I think it would be more beneficial for her at a starting age, growing up with a smaller school, just smaller ratios, so that it's not a big change for her going to a bigger school with people she's never been in, just a whole new environment to her. I think it wouldn't really benefit her in an educational standpoint.
Okay. All right. We'll see if any board members have a question. Dr. Hill? Okay. Dr. Moore?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Dr. Rankin?
No questions.
Mr. Sutton?
No questions.
Ms. McFetridge?
No, thank you.
Ms. Steen? Okay. Anything from district or parent that you would like to add? Okay. All right. So, Ms. Post, I forgot to ask you. I'm so sorry.
Okay, no questions.
Okay, sorry. I guess we're ready for a motion then. Okay, with no motion right now, do we have any discussion?
Mr. Wida?
Yes.
The only thing that I would add is the fact that with Elizabeth attending the pre-K ABC program at Glen Rose and wanting to continue to stay at Glen Rose in kindergarten, that is, on our campus anyway, that is the same building with the same group of kids and the same group of adults that are there. So it's true that technically Elizabeth has not gone to Glen Rose because it's the ABC program, but it is the same building, the same group of adults, the same drop-off, the same pickup, the same, things like that. And so it would be essentially a continuation of where the child is going to school.
Okay. Thank you for Mr. Holliker. That was helpful. Any discussion from the board or a motion?
Ms. Newton, can I ask, how many students are in the Malvern School District?
Mr. Roberts?
You talking about a district as a whole or per
Yes.
grade? We're right at 1,900. We're going to be at the kind of if you look at the AAA classifications, we're going to be a mid to 3/4 up 4A school, whereas Glen Rose is going to be I think they are now the largest 3A school in the state. So in terms of actual district size, we are a bit larger, but I would not characterize us as a large school by any stretch of the imagination. And in terms of student-teacher ratio, I mean, us and Glen Rose are both going to be very comparable there. I don't see that being a difference. One thing we do is we do have a specialized aide in every kindergarten class, so there actually are 2 educators, a teacher and an aide in each kindergarten class to help with those students and, you know, those early ages.
And physically, how are these 2 districts, are y'all contiguous, adjacent?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move to grant the appeal.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Steen to grant the appeal,
I'll second.
seconded by Mr. Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Moore.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, Mr.
Thank
Duke.
you, board, for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Holliker and Mr. Roberts for being here with us this morning. Mr. Dugan, I think you're up next for the consideration for final approval, DCTE policies and procedures.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And today I'm going to be asking the board to make a motion to give final approval to these policies and procedures, but also repeal the old ones that we had because we had replaced them with these. We had a public comment hearing on June 23rd, 2021. We received 2 public comments on these rules, one from Mr. Harder. It was all non-substantive grammatical changes and suggestions. And the other public comment we received was from over at the Division of Career and Technical Education. We made those changes. They were non-substantive. And so I have Mr. Ross here, Mr. Ross White, the Director of Division of Career and Technical Education. We'd love to answer questions for the board on these, but we're going to be asking today respectfully to repeal the old rules and grant final approval for these rules.
Okay, so need 2 separate motions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Morning, Mr. Ross. Dr. Hill, you have a question? Dr. Moore?
No.
Dr. Rankin?
No questions.
Mr. Sutton?
No questions.
Ms. McFetridge?
I don't know if this is a question, but I think it'd be really good if sometime, Mr. Key, if we could have, it says in the policies and procedures that Arkansas provides focused support for students from special education, and it'd be interesting to hear how that is supported. And maybe it can be answered today, but it'd be great to have a report on that at some time.
Well, Mr. White, if you've got a short answer, or if you'd rather come back with work with special ed
We can always
folks.
come back with a more in-depth report. You know, I think a big piece of ours is a part of the transition plans, and I'm not sure how aware you are of transition plans, but you know, all the students who are served through an IEP have to have that transition.
Can you talk into the microphone a little bit
Sorry.
more? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm not sure with transition plans how aware you are of those, but I mean, through the IEP process, all students have to have that transition plan to transition out of high school. And so, you know, a large percentage of students on transition plans do that through their CTE programming. A lot of students get into their transition plans written to a workforce skill that is embedded into one of our CTE courses. So I mean, we can come up with a more comprehensive report to give you more data and numbers that impacts, but I would say that's a big piece of it. You're seeing the work of the special education population working within career and technical education to meet the needs of those transition plans.
And Ms. McFetridge, we know that CTE is an area that historically has not come before this board much. I mean, so part of the new legislation, I mean, y'all are going to be seeing and hearing more about this, so I think that's an excellent request. We can make that happen, and we'll bring that report and may expand on that with a little bit more information about CTE for a future Friday reports agenda item.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to hear that. No big rush. I know how busy you are, but it would be really helpful, I think.
It's an important question. We're happy to provide that. And Mr. White is a little taller than most folks that come up to the microphone up here, so we might have to get extenders for him so he doesn't have to stoop down.
Thank you.
Ms. Steen, questions? Ms. Post? Okay. All right. If there's no more discussion from the board, we're ready for first a motion to repeal the existing.
Correct, yes ma'am, the old ones that we have.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, motion by Dr. Hill to repeal the existing DCTE policies and procedures.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we need a motion to approve these policies and procedures.
I'll make a motion to approve the new policies and procedures.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. McFetridge to approve the policies and procedures.
I'll second.
Seconded by Dr. Rankin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dugan. Mr. Dugan, I guess this is the last one. So we wish you well, and we thank you so much for all that you've done for us. Well, you have done a great job, and we can call you not just a great servant, but a great friend. So thank you for all you've done.
Y'all have a good rest of the day.
Best of luck, Taylor.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, so we're to the fun part. Ms. Smith.
Good morning, Stacy Smith.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, I think today is going to go a little bit slower because I do know that we do have some questions for several of the districts based on just how late we were getting them uploaded. So I do have John Ashworth. John, you are on the Zoom, correct, from Virtual Arkansas?
That's correct.
Okay, and I know there were some questions for him at the last board meeting and even recently about the numbers. So Ms. Newton, I didn't know if you guys would want to start asking Virtual Arkansas some questions because it hits several applications.
Yes, okay. We can begin there. Good morning, Mr. Ashworth.
Good morning.
And we thank you for joining us today. I did have a question that I wanted to ask. By my count, there are at least 70 districts that are using Virtual Arkansas for either all of their digital learning plan or part of their digital learning plan. So I know that you've had an influx of requests from districts. How are you meeting that with teachers as far as numbers of teachers, being able to get them trained before school starts? And then also, are you going to be able to keep your numbers as far as teaching load to that 190 that we had discussed earlier this year?
Sure, that's a good question. Well, we're feeding off of what happened last year. So last year, at the very beginning of the year, we had a huge influx of students being enrolled, something that we've never seen. And of course, the pandemic was the cause of that. And because of that, we hired a lot of teachers right before school started. And so we're actually able to retain many of those teachers. We don't anticipate having any issues as far as the number of teachers that we have. We did poll, early in the spring semester, the superintendents to try to get an idea of what type of numbers we're going to be looking at. So we feel confident going into this year. And we're confident about, I did tell you in that meeting, we had an average of about 195 students to each teacher last year. I have every confidence that we're going to be able to stay right around that number.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Let's see if any of the other board members have questions for you this morning. Ms. Dean? Ms. McFetridge?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Sutton?
No questions.
Dr. Rankin?
No questions.
Dr. Moore?
Yes, I think, and we talked about this during our last meeting, but I think my main concerns are in the cases where students are falling behind and that communication between Virtual Arkansas and the home district to see how they can work together. And I know every home district is assigned a virtual facilitator, but can you speak to a little bit more what that relationship is like when a student is either not logging in or really far behind in grades, and how they work together?
Absolutely. So we emphasize the facilitator relationship with our teacher and the student. We actually have a name for it. We call it the triad. That's how important it is to us and to the success of the student. So that triad is going to include the local facilitator who is the eyes and the ears in the digital classroom at school or monitoring that student along with the teacher and the student. So that's our triad, extremely important. We provide intensive training to those every year. So it's an annual training for the facilitators. That's going to be, before school starts in August this year. We also have a dedicated individual that their whole sole focus is facilitators. The title of that individual is facilitator coordinator. That is a liaison between our teacher, and you can imagine if we have around 600 facilitators in the state, communication is very important, how that communication flows. And so we put a lot of thought into that. We have a lot of experience with it, and we have a very good process in place to make sure that communication flows effectively. So there's going to be times where our teacher is going to communicate directly with the facilitator. They can also communicate directly with the local administrators, just like our teacher is their teacher. Sometimes if we have a broad topic that needs to be communicated, that would flow through our facilitator coordinator so that the facilitators aren't getting a lot of messages from a lot of different teachers. So communication, I think we have a very good process for communication with not only the facilitator, but the administrators if we need to.
Okay. Thank you for speaking more to that.
You bet.
Ms. Post?
It might not be possible right now, but I'm just wondering about the statistics on students that maybe were disengaged throughout the year, and how many towards the end of the year had recovered their grades and passed courses or grade levels.
Yeah, so I'd have to get back with you on the engagement rate, but as far as the pass rate, we look at pass rates of organizations like ours throughout the nation. I know the last time I checked, I believe we were the second second highest pass rate in the nation. Our typical pass rate pre-COVID was about 93%. After COVID this past year, it did go down a little bit. It was at 91%.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions from the board?
Yes, this may not just be for Virtual Arkansas, but a question that keeps coming in my mind does the district have control of class size when using a vendor? Because we look at some of these applications and they are going to be under the class size, but the vendor may not be. I'm not quite sure, am I asking it the right way? I mean, does the district have control over that?
So that's a really good question, Stacy Smith. So with what's unique about Virtual Arkansas with Mr. Ashworth is that that's funded by the Department of Education. And so most of the school districts in the state you see are using Virtual Arkansas, and so they do fall under what we're doing here today in their caps. Some of the others that are using independent vendors outside of, they have the waiver for, rules alone allow those virtual providers to have a much larger student ratio, and so they would not fall under the same cap. So if we said, you know, Pearson could only have 150, well, our rules already allow them to have more than that, so the district wouldn't even be asking for that waiver to begin with. So, and that's been that way for many, many years.
So as long as the district has that support locally, then they should be okay. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I think that's what we've pushed for, where we saw school districts using outside vendors and they didn't have that person on site making it the small class size and checking on kids to make sure they were progressing. So I think that's kind of what we've pushed for as far as having that liaison so that the school district can manage the group of students and not necessarily the purchase service of an outside provider who's providing that.
Okay. So someone like Pearson can have students from really all over
yes.
in one class room. Okay. Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Ashworth, I had one more question on professional development. Are you providing professional development not just for your own teachers, but for other districts around the states that are implementing digital learning plans?
Very targeted professional development we can provide. We're not really a professional development arm. Team Digital is going to be more of that, provide that type of professional development. We do have professional development that we have shared with Team Digital. We do provide specific professional development for course design and development. That's more of our specialty. That's where we have a lot of experience in training and that, so we do provide some of that training.
Okay.
But as far as our teachers are concerned, we have a very extensive onboarding process and training for our teachers, yes.
Okay, so other districts around the state are using Team Digital for their professional development then? Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
And Team Digital is another Arkansas Department of Education funded grant. Those folks actually work very closely with Don Benton and his group, and they actually lead and facilitate and set the goals and objectives for that group.
Okay, all right.
And are placed throughout the state in our educational cooperatives.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you, Mr. Ashworth, for being with us this morning and being willing to answer our seemingly unending questions, I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I'm already aware of some districts that we have questions for based on the questions you sent, and we did forward those questions to the district. So on those districts, Ms. Newton, if this is okay, I'm going to go ahead and go down the list.
Because I've marked some of them off.
Okay, so we'll go through the list and decide who we have questions for and who we don't. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, Malvern. Are we good with Malvern? Lead Hill. Good with Lead Hill? Any questions for Lead Hill? Okay. Hazen. Bearden.
I had questions on Bearden.
Okay, keep them. So Heber Springs.
I have questions at Heber Springs.
We have two districts underneath the Guy Fenter Co-op. One was Scranton. and the other was Waldron. Okay. If it's okay, could I pause there and we go ahead and approve those that we just went through, or do you want me to go through the entire list?
Okay.
Okay, so if we could get a motion for Malvern, Lead Hill, Hazen, Scranton, and Waldron to approve their applications for the number of years indicated on their application.
I had a question for Scranton. I'm sorry, I had my microphone off.
Okay, so we're going to not approve Scranton right now. We'll hold it.
So that would then be Malvern, Lead Hill, Hazen, and Waldron.
Yes. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve these digital learning plans for the number of years asked for in their plan?
Can I, Stacy, can I ask you a question about, I thought I saw one of them was requesting 5 years, but the max that we're approving, regardless of what they say, is 3.
Yes, my notes indicate they were all had amended to at least 3 years or less.
Oh, okay, okay.
And we can clarify that in the motion for the 3 years or less as indicated on their application.
Okay, all right. So the motion would be to approve these named districts for 3 years or less, if whatever's indicated on their in their digital learning plan.
I'll make the motion to approve the stated districts for the number of years requested up to a max of 3 years.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Okay, seconded by Dr. Rankin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations to each one of the districts, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. So that takes us to the point in the application where it's Act 1240 digital learning applications and waivers from the Tri-Region.
Okay.
And that puts us at the district of Wynn. Does anyone have a question for Wynn board members?
I have a question for that co-op.
For the Tri-Region, okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we want to do you want to ask that question now, or do you want to, because there's 3 districts underneath that co-op. It would be Wynn, North Fork, and Mountain View. Are the questions?
It was, now or whenever is best, but just to let you know, it's on class size for elementary.
Okay. Tri-Region, Ms. Castor or Daryl? I'm not sure who's on here for the Tri-Region.
Is there someone on from Tri-Region?
Yeah, there's Ms. Castor.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Moore, and ask your question.
Yes, good morning. Thank you all for being here today. I do have concern when there is high student-teacher ratio at the elementary, particularly if you're going to have teachers teaching multiple grade levels across the spectrum. So I wanted to check to see how many teachers you have planned for elementary and what those class sizes are looking like.
In the Tri-Region plan, we have class size ratio of K2 being 30 and 3-6 being 50. And there is 1 teacher per grade level. We intend to maintain those ratios and increase the number of teachers as the number of students increases.
Okay. For 3rd and 4th grade, 50 is almost double an in-person classroom teacher. What led y'all to make that choice to double that class size?
We looked at a number that we thought would be reasonable, knowing that we could, with the recommended number of minutes that we were seeing prevailing across the U.S. in terms of digital learning, that we could split the sessions and do more focused instruction in morning and an afternoon with some grouping patterns.
And those teachers, are they already hired, and do they feel comfortable with that number?
We're in the process of hiring. I think we've got one position left to fill. And in my discussions with the director, the teachers are comfortable.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Tri-Region Co-op? Okay.
Okay, so let's start back with Wynn again. Do we have questions for the Wynn district? Okay, I'm going to check that one. Do we have questions for North Fork? Okay, I'm going to check that one. Do we have questions for Mountain View? Okay. So those are the three districts within the Tri-Region Consortium. So if we could go ahead and get a motion for Wynn, North Fork, and Mountain View for the number of years on their application, all are 3 or less.
I've got that also Highland and Calico Rock are part of the Tri-Region.
I did not have those as part of that one.
Okay.
Ms. Castor, are those two part of yours?
They were also doing Virtual Arkansas, but.
Oh, they are Tri-Region. I see what you're correct. They are. It was how it was numbered. That's what got me.
Okay.
Anybody have questions for Highland? Questions for Calico Rock? So if we could seek a motion to approve those 5.
Do we have a motion to approve these 5 districts for the number of years indicated in their plan?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Ms. McFetridge. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, that brings us to Prairie Grove. Any questions for Prairie Grove?
Yes, I had questions on Prairie Grove.
Okay, so we'll keep them on. That takes us to Wilbur Mills, Pangburn.
Yes, I had questions for the Wilbur Mills Co-op, same questions about class size.
Okay.
Stacy,
Yes,
on
sir.
the agenda V6, it doesn't have districts listed, but it has Northwest Consortium.
It has Prairie Grove right underneath. Oh,
There are two separate items, and I didn't know if that's just a
I think it's
typo.
I think it's Prairie Grove is underneath the Northwest Consortium, but it's misnumbered. You're correct.
All right, thank you.
And I need people double checking me on that.
But I think you're right. The consortium got a number when it probably shouldn't have.
Okay, so we have questions for Wilbur Mills Cooperative, and that has 3 districts, I believe, under it right now. Is there a representative from Wilbur Mills on the Zoom?
I'm here. Dr. Stacy, I'm here.
Okay, great. Dr. Moore?
Yes, good morning. I know we've talked about this before, but I wanted to check in, again, concerns, especially in the lower levels, about having such a large class size. What numbers we're looking like, and how y'all are working with the teachers on that.
Good morning. Yeah, so we are a K-8 consortia with Pearson, and I know that you saw the application. We did the class size waiver for 50 to 1. One important thing to remember when we're talking about this consortia is that the teacher will be the same teacher for all the subjects for the children in the lower grades. And we think that is important for continuity. They will not be switching between teachers. They do all their core content with one teacher. We think that's very important. We also chose to go with them because they were already experienced teachers of remote learners. And so we felt like that. We didn't want this to be sort of knee-jerk. We didn't want this to be about the pandemic. we wanted it to be about real high quality education. So we chose to go with someone who's very experienced and had a lot of success in remote teaching. So there will be synchronous and asynchronous learning, and especially at the K2, a lot of focused synchronous learning, a lot of small group, and a lot of pull out for those children who are learning to read.
And I know we discussed this before, but as you're with Pearson in that contract, are all the students in your co-op in the same teacher, or are they sort of scattered about? You know, for kindergarten, all your kindergartners, are they in the same class, or are they in many different teachers' classes?
Right. No, they may be not all together. And in fact, right now, I don't know that we have any kindergarten students in our school districts who will be in the consortia. We wrote for that in case that did happen, especially considering maybe a health concern or something like that that could come up where a student would need that. But when we last went through our rosters with our schools, our participating school districts, we're not aware of any kindergarten students. However, they are not necessarily, to answer your question, grouped with one teacher from the Wilbur Mills region.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions today.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll see if we have any other questions from any other board members. Ms. Post?
No questions.
Ms. McFettridge?
On the White County Central, their application is different, and the years that they're requesting is not on it. But the department's sure it's a 3-year plan?
It's a 3-year plan.
Okay.
Mr. Sutton?
No questions.
Dr. Rankin?
No questions.
Dr. Hill? Okay, all right.
So I'm going to kind of go back over those 3 districts
Okay.
that are under Wilbur. So Pangburn, any questions for Pangburn? Any questions for Lone Oak? And to clarify, White County Central is 3 years. Any questions for White County Central?
Stacy, the agenda says through the 23-24 school year for White County Central. 21, 22, 23, never mind. That's right, it's 3. Some of them say school years and some of them say the number of years, so
Yeah. We
I'm
good?
just trying to make sure
Okay.
we're clear. Thank you.
Okay. So if there are no questions about those districts, we could get a motion for Pangburn, Lone Oak, and White County Central for the number of years indicated, because they're different. The 3 are different.
Do we have a motion to approve those 3 for the years indicated?
So,
Okay, motion by Dr. Hill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay.
Okay, the next takes us to Strong Huddig. Is there questions for Strong Huddig? And I'm going to keep moving down the list here.
Okay.
Questions for Huntsville? Any questions for Clarendon?
I had questions.
Question, okay, so
Yes.
keep Clarendon on here. Blevins,
Yes.
questions for Blevins. And then the last one, Helena, West Helena.
Yes, I have questions.
Questions for that one? All right, so I would ask for a motion for only 2 of those districts at this time, Strong Huddig and Huntsville.
Do you have a motion for Strong Huddig and Huntsville for the years indicated?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. McFettridge,
Second.
seconded by Dr. Rankin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. So I'm just going to quickly clarify who I have on my list that we're going to keep on and ask questions to. and make sure that we're the same. So the first one I have was Bearden, Heber Springs, Scranton, Prairie Grove, Clarendon, Blevins, and Helena, West Helena.
That's what I have.
And then everyone else has been approved, and thank y'all for joining us on the Zoom, but those districts need to stay. So is there a representative on the Zoom from Bearden School District?
Yes, I'm Denny Rosenberg, the superintendent, and I believe also maybe my elementary principal, Mr. Wright, may be here also. I apologize for being under the weather with my voice today.
Okay. Is it Mr., could you say your name again? I'm sorry.
Rosenberg.
Mr. Rosenberg, okay. Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg, for joining us today. We appreciate it very much. I had a question on your plan. It states that your K-6 is a blended plan, and they're going to meet face-to-face, I believe, 2 days a week, and then be virtual the other days. Is the face-to-face during school hours or before?
Yes, they'll be, right now, most of our sections, they'll be face-to-face. Our plan is on Monday and Friday. Our elementary thought that it's going to be very hard, especially with a K through 2, to offer digital learning to students and teach them to read and never see those students. And so we wanted to start the week out with them on Mondays, and then they'll come back in on Fridays.
Okay.
Our ultimate goal is that every kid comes back face-to-face. But we do know that there are some special circumstances out there with some parents that are at risk and even some kids that are at risk. And ourselves, we lost one parapro this year with COVID. One of our employees retired in cafeteria in December. She passed away with COVID in January. We lost one of our employees that retired 2 years ago. So we know that COVID is a serious matter.
Yes, and you have our sympathy for your loss. The Monday and Friday, it was very interesting to me. So teachers that will be doing the virtual students, are they totally virtual?
No, they're not totally virtual, but all the virtual students will be in that one teacher's classroom. Right now, currently, like K through 6, we normally have 2 teachers. So if one of the teachers would have the virtual students in their classroom. However, in the K program, we have a Title IIA class size reduction teacher. So there's 3 teachers in there, and we'll either going to use ESSER funds to put on an additional either first or second grade class size reduction teacher that we can kind of concentrate on that focus of learning on those kindergartners and first graders. But let's just say yourself and myself were second grade teachers. You might have all the virtual kids and a little bit lighter load, and I'd have the other ones.
Okay.
So there'll be basically 7 teachers potentially in elementary that have virtual students, and the other 7 will not.
Okay, I'm had difficulty hearing a little bit, but from what I'm understanding, your teachers have a normal classroom and also a virtual classroom.
That's correct. And I'm going to let Mr. Wright weigh in here a little bit with his voice maybe a little bit better than mine.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Wright.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. So basically, we have about 20 kids per teacher. If you don't include the hybrid students. If you do include the hybrid students, you're still gonna float around 2022. Currently, we only have 2 students that signed up for blended or virtual learning. They are 6th graders. And so we have 1 6th grade teacher. We have 21 kids in her classroom, and they're all in person. And then in the other classroom, she's gonna have, I wanna say 18 kids in her class and 2 virtual. Well, hybrid, I'm sorry. Now, the kids in the class use Google Classroom, they use Class Dojo. So the kids that are hybrid, the teachers don't have to do anything different with them. They're going to be live with the teacher as the teacher's teaching. And so the teacher will still be able to get the kids in class work just like she could get the 2 kids that's, hybrid. So we're not trying to overload our teachers. They're still using the same format that they're using for the in-person students, the traditional students.
So those students that are going to be virtual, that are coming on campus 2 days a week, they would go into a normal, regular classroom?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So they're not going to be separated. That, I think that was where I couldn't follow, was what the teacher was going to do with her other class whenever she was working with these students that were coming 2 days a week. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. They will be in the same class. So the teacher will not have 2 different classes that she has to attend to when on Monday and Friday. They'll be in the same class.
Okay. And right now it's only 6th grade that you have anybody even signed up.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Dr. Hill? Dr. Moore?
No.
Dr. Rankin?
No questions.
Mr. Sutton? Oh, he's not there. I'm sorry. Ms. McVettridge?
No, thank you.
Ms. Post?
Question.
Okay. All right. So do we want to approve these as we go then?
That would be fine.
Okay. All right. So we need a motion for Bearden for
3 years.
3 years.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. A motion by Dr. Rankin,
Second.
seconded by Ms. McFettridge. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg and Mr. Wright, for being here with us this morning. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to Heber Springs. Is there a representative from Heber Springs?
Yes, ma'am. Superintendent Andy Ashley.
Good morning, Mr. Ashley.
Good morning.
You answered several of my questions, and I appreciate your time to answer that. I had one final question, and it was just kind of to clear up something that I wasn't sure about. In your plan, it just said that some teachers were going to be virtual, some were going to be dual, and some were going to be simultaneous. Could you be specific about kind of where each one of those would occur and
Yes,
what
ma'am.
grade levels that would be?
So at our elementary school, we're going to have one dedicated teacher for our kindergarten. Right now, or, I'm sorry, not kindergarten, for elementary. And right now we've got about 10 or 15 students that have signed up for that, and that's going to be K-5. And she's actually in training right now with some folks from the Tyson School of Innovation and Fayetteville Virtual Academy. They've came down to work with our teachers that are going to be virtual because they've had that opportunity and have done that for several years. So we're excited about that partnership with them. In our middle school, we're going to have one dedicated person that's going to be more of a facilitator with those kids because they're going to take the lessons and things that are videoed and taught in the class and disseminate those things to our virtual kids. And right now we've only got about 8 or 9 virtual kids in the middle school. And then similar process at the high school. We've got one person that's dedicated to be that liaison. And our assistant principal is also going to be the more working with that person and those students. And the thing we struggled with at our size of district is we would have loved to pulled out and had a dedicated teacher at the secondary level, but I guess I'm not smart enough to figure that out for each content area. But you know, when you think about math, you've got 6, 7, 8, 9 different types of math, and it was very difficult for that. So our teachers are going to video their lessons, and that facilitator is going to go back and be the liaison between that student and those teachers, and along with our assistant principal at the high school level.
So that will be mostly asynchronous, or?
It will, but those students will also have the option if that child, say for instance, really struggles in math and they would like to come on campus for math, in particular. That seems to be our biggest area is math, and we'll allow them to come on campus for that.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions for Mr. Ashley for Heber Springs? Dr. Hill? Dr. Moore?
No.
Dr. Rankin?
No questions.
Mr. Sutton?
No questions.
Ms. McFetridge?
No, thank you.
Ms. Woods? Ms. Post?
No questions.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we are ready for a motion for Heber Springs for 3 years.
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Sutton, seconded by Dr. Hill. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Ashley.
Thank you so much.
Right, that takes us to Scranton. Is there a representative from Scranton?
All right.
I'm on here from Guy Finter.
Yes, my only question was, again, it's a different application form and they didn't have the years that they were requesting. I believe it was 1 year when I went back and looked at their school board minutes.
My notes say 3 years.
3.
Is it 3? Okay.
Yes, and the reason they have a different application is they were a little later in opting into the consortium, and there was a little bit of confusion with a lot of administrative changes. So anyway, they're in the consortium with the other schools that you've approved.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That was the only question I had.
Ms. Miller, while you're on here, could you go ahead from the co-op in your consortium, give us some updates on teachers and class sizes, similar to what Dr. Moore asked just a few minutes ago?
Yes, we still currently have our 3 teachers, and they are also doing some virtual training, and our coordinator is with them as well. And we still our numbers are still looking at right around 20 total. We don't have a lot of enrollment in the virtual consortium at this point.
Okay, can you tell me about your 3 teachers? Because my last notes that I had was that you were going to have 2 teachers. So,
well, I was including the parapro, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the 2
All
teachers and the paraprofessional, yes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for Ms. Miller from the Guy Finter Co-op?
No.
All right. So we are considering Scranton for 3 years.
I'll make the motion to approve Scranton for 3 years.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. McFetridge. Have a second? Seconded by Ms. Dean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so my notes have us moving to Prairie Grove with B7. And I do see that we have a member from Northwest Arkansas on here, Dr. Hickson, and do we have anybody from Prairie Grove? Sure. Okay, yes, we do. We have Prairie Grove up there as well.
Who is on from Prairie Grove?
I see the Prairie Grove School District. Will you introduce yourself from Prairie Grove?
My name is Rita Holmes, Superintendent of Prairie Grove School District. I have Pete Jeans, Assistant Superintendent, with me to speak about the digital learning plan.
And you guys may have to get closer to your microphones. It was hard to hear you.
Can you hear us better now?
Pete, I think we can always hear you.
Yes. That's why he's our spokesperson.
Unfortunately.
Thank you for being here this morning. In your digital learning plan, this was, to me, it was kind of interesting that you had a Plan A and a Plan B. Your Plan A was that your students could choose to be in the Northwest Arkansas Consortium, or the 5th and 6th graders could choose Plan B to go with linking learning. How, I mean, which way a student?
Sure. Forgive me for the misunderstanding there. I kind of overthought the process. This was before we're in the process of working with the Northwest Arkansas Consortium. The idea of the Plan A, Plan B was to prepare for any possible future events. If by chance the number of students increased to the point where it was out of the capacity of what the consortium would be able to handle, I was wanting to have a Plan B for our those K through 6 students to be able to try something else. Specifically going to more of a traditional model where we wouldn't be in the consortium, we would be with the individual teachers at the buildings. So the Plan B was just kind of a way to have a safety net in case the number of students that wanted to have virtual instruction were to come about. So there's no choice. There's no choice there for the students. Forgive me for interrupting. There's no choice there for the students. It's more of a district decision if our numbers got to the point where the consortium could not handle that anymore. After speaking with Dr. Hickson, what would probably happen is the consortium would increase their numbers and ask for an amendment to increase the number of teachers to handle any additional students that might want virtual instruction.
So more than likely, your 5th and 6th graders then will stay with the consortium then?
Correct.
Okay, all right. All right. That clears it up. Are there any other questions for Prairie Grove from the board? Dr. Hill? Dr. Moore?
No.
Dr. Rankin?
No.
Mr. Sutton?
No.
Ms. McFetridge?
No, thank you.
Ms. Dean? Ms. Post?
No questions.
Okay.
So a motion would be needed for Prairie Grove for 3 years.
I'll make the motion to approve Prairie Grove for 3 years.
A motion by Ms. McFetridge. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sutton. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. Congratulations. Have a good day.
Okay, this jumps us over to section 10, Clarendon School District. Is there a representative on the Zoom from Clarendon? Please introduce yourself.
Is there anyone on the Zoom with Clarendon? Do we want to?
Okay, we'll go on to the next one. You see if you can figure out what's going on there with Clarendon. Blevins, is there someone on the Zoom from Blevins?
Yes, ma'am. Stephanie Dixon, the superintendent.
Good morning, Ms. Dixon.
Good morning.
I just had a quick question just to clear something up. In your plan, it stated that you would be using Canvas, and I wasn't sure if you were loading your district curriculum into Canvas or you were using Virtual Arkansas curriculum.
We will be using the virtual Arkansas curriculum.
Okay. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Does anyone else have a question? Dr. Hill? Dr. Moore? Dr. Rankin?
No questions.
Mr. Sutton?
No, thanks.
Ms. McFetridge?
No, thank you.
Ms. Dean? Ms. Post?
No questions.
All right, so we are ready for Blevins, and there's, I believe, was just 1 year.
Blevins is 1 year. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a motion for Blevins? have a motion for Blevins.
I'll move to approve.
Dr. Moore, seconded by Ms. Dean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
The next district is Helena West Helena. So is there a representative for Helena West Helena?
Yes, good morning, Superintendent Linda English. And I do have with me our GT coordinator, Mrs. Amanda Eaton. I also have our special ed director, Mrs. Latrinda Mills. I also have our school improvement specialist / federal programs, Ms. Adrian Watkins. I also have our district PD coordinator / curriculum liaison, Mrs. Joyce Anderson. And also I have our principal on, Mrs. Jewel Hamilton. Once again, good morning to all. We're happy to be here.
Good morning. We thank all of you for being here. That's quite a room full.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Dr. Moore.
Yes, good morning. Thank you all
Good
for being
morning.
here. In looking at your application, it looks like students will be learning primarily asynchronously when you're using Edgenuity. Could you explain why you all decided to go down that route and how you think that will work out for students?
We used Edgenuity last year, Dr. Moore, and we felt that we had success with it. We will also be using our curriculum that we have developed locally. I expect a large number of our students will be returning. We feel that there will only be a small number of students that will be seeking to go virtual in the Cooper Virtual Academy.
What percentage of students did you have virtual this year?
Just one moment, let me get those numbers. For JF Wall Elementary, on beginning was 62%. At the end, at JF Wall Elementary, there was 20%. So that's why we went 5 through 12, and we're only seeking 1 year because our goal is we want our students, all of our students on site. At Central High School, they started with 70% virtual and they ended with 60% virtual.
Okay. Is there any consideration for students who are opting to do virtual next year, how this current year went for them? You know, and if a student was failing or not doing well virtually this year, will they be still allowed to have that option next year?
We will look at, through interviews for those students who did not have great success. Before we make that determination, we will interview those students and their parents so that we can ascertain their ability to be successful at virtual.
Okay, what is the numbers for the fall?
We did not submit the application out yet. We wanted to have the approval first. We did not want to disappoint our students and our parents. We did do surveys of our teachers who overwhelmingly, they did want to have a virtual component with strict guidelines. Also, parents wanted virtual with the strict guidelines, and our student cabinet also requested virtual.
Okay. As far as it looks like, I have concerns about how it is working with teachers. So it looks like if a teacher, their job will be to upload the curriculum and work in Edgenuity, and then it talks about some sort of office hours. What
Right.
teachers will be doing office hours, and what does that look like?
The thing for the office hours is to ensure that we're checking in with those students to guarantee their success for those who are eligible for that Cougar Virtual Academy. We want they're permitted to come on campus as well as they struggle usually in math, but those office hours are set to provide social, emotional support to those students, academic support to those students. And we were just approved by the board, school board on Monday to be able to post for academic success coaches, which will be one at Central and one at JF Wall, to help support those teachers who will be working in that 3:30 to 5:30 time frame. But they're there to make sure that those students are successful. And our goal is to make sure that those teachers are those teachers who have those students that are virtual.
Okay, and are teachers compensated for that additional time?
Yes, ma'am, they'll have to be compensated because it will be after their contracted hours.
Okay. Those office hours, are they all virtual or do they allow some in person?
We would like to have it virtual as well as on site, because some of those students might have to come in and have a one-to-one with his or her teacher.
Okay.
So that will be a permittable.
That's good. I mean, I'm looking at it, thinking of it right now. If you have more than half of your high school virtual, they haven't set foot on campus in a year and a half. Do many of those students use that office hours this year?
We did not offer the office hours this year, but they could call in or come by and have a conversation and or even come to class if they were struggling in a content area. Okay. I feel that a large number of our high school students are going to come back for the 21-22 school year.
Okay. Do you envision once that application goes live to do the virtual option, will your teachers or counselors be talking with families?
Yes, we will be doing an orientation. Once we know what the outcome will be for our Cooper Virtual Academy, we will start our orientation. As we did last year, we had heavy involvement at both schools in orientating our students as well as our parents.
Okay, I believe that's all the questions I have right now. Thank you. I'll see if anyone else
Thank
has
you, Dr. Moore.
Appreciate it.
All right. Dr. Rankin?
No questions.
Mr. Sutton? Mr. Sutton?
Sorry, had it muted. No questions.
Okay. Ms. McFetridge?
Yes, I just have a quick question. I love the idea of your office hours.
Yes, ma'am.
What a great way to support your students. Is that Monday through Friday or on every school day that you offer?
We will look at that. I think we said they had to do twice a week, but knowing the learning loss and the situation that we're going to incur, I really feel that it should be every day. But we have to look at our cost into which we're willing to make that investment.
Sure. And you think you've got enough teachers to do that will volunteer?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I do.
Great. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Ms. Steen? Ms. Post?
Yes, ma'am. As a high school math teacher, my ears always perk up when I hear you say that the students are struggling with their math instruction. How many of your teachers that are keeping the office hours are high school math teachers?
We're going to look at making sure that we will have a majority of our teachers that will be math teachers to be be committed to those office hours. And we have some excellent teachers that are committed to students. We have I would say a veteran math teacher that has just received a licensure. So, and that teacher has always been above and beyond. And other teachers, they go above and beyond. So we will make sure that those math teachers are heavily loaded in that afternoon hour. And please remember, students can still, if they're virtual, be able to come on campus and go into that classroom. So yes. We'll
Thank
make
you.
sure.
I
Yes,
applaud-
ma'am, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. English?
Yes, I did. Do you currently offer many courses through Virtual Arkansas to your students?
We do not.
Okay. And so you don't plan to offer any next year? Why,
ma'am, we don't.
why did y'all choose not to go that route?
We felt that with our curriculum and with our staff, that we can support the learning. We use Google Classroom and other methods of recording lessons and doing those kinds of things. And we felt that we could handle it ourselves with our curriculum and with Edgenuity. And Mrs. Hamilton, I believe, is on. Mrs. Hamilton, will you please elaborate a little bit for your 5th and 6th graders, if you don't mind, please? Good morning. You're muted, Miss
Hamilton, we can't hear you.
Right, I'm working on it. Yes,
Okay.
good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
So yes, with the 5th and 6th graders, we're looking at the same platform as far as making sure those students do have the additional support, having one teacher for that grade level, and to make sure our content is covered. Our 5th and 6th grade were generally, by the end of the year, those were the grades where we had most of our students that were still remaining virtual, but our numbers were very low overall. So therefore, we decided to give them that option.
Dr. Moore, do you have any additional questions?
Yes. Looking at your students this year, do you all have, what does on-track graduation look like for your high school students?
We have worked very diligently through our counseling services and with our plan to make sure our students graduate. I cannot recall the actual graduation rate, but they work diligently to get our students graduated.
Was there any?
So we make sure that our students are on track to graduate from the beginning all the way to the end. And another component will be that academic success coach. And one of the things that we do, we offer summer school. For those students that were failing, we offer credit recovery to ensure that those students did get those hours or those course credits to graduate. So that's another catch-all that we provide here in the Helena, West Helena School District to our students. And we use Apex for that.
Did your students come on site to do the credit recovery?
Yes, ma'am, they came on site.
Any other questions for Ms. English?
Yeah, but I'll ask one last question. Is there any consideration as to limiting the number of virtual students next year at a certain percent of your student population? Obviously, I know that we want to respect COVID and the situation at hand, but I'm just having a hard time thinking that more than half of your high school population might go 2.5 years without stepping foot in a school.
We certainly going to limit through our application process the number of students to be virtual. We know our students need to be on site. Once again, I'm hearing even from my superintendent student cabinet, there are several are coming back, whereas before, no, I love virtual, I'm excelling, I want to stay. But because of the socialization and being with their peers and wanting to have that camaraderie, and I understand Central High School is a new school. So we know that I feel that the numbers are going to be lower than what it was last year with the high number of students that still chose at 60% to remain virtual. We will make sure safety measures are in place. As I've said, the students are wanting to come back, even at the high school, because the parents see that we have these safety measures in place. We will certainly limit the number of students in our application process.
Okay, and
We're only
again,
asking-
I know students might need that option for different reasons, but in your application, I'm seeing you're only requiring students to log on a minimum of 2 times a week. So I just want to make sure that if students have that option, it's a great option for them and that they're able to excel. And it's hard to imagine a high school student only logging in twice per week and excelling.
Right, we're expecting our students, as far as the content, to log on every day to be participating. But in that 3:30 to 5:30, we said at least twice a week. But after thinking it through, it needs to be every day, but with the understanding that they can also still come to the school, into the classroom, and etc. So that's something we will look at. We probably will increase it to maybe, as often as they need, rather than saying you should log on at a minimum of 2 to 3 times a week with your teacher.
Okay.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. English, while you're here, I know, and this really doesn't have to do with your plan, but I did have this question for your district. I know that in the past you've had difficulties with staffing, getting teachers for classrooms. How is staffing going for this coming school year?
We had a large number of teachers to retire. We're working diligently to get those teachers here. The licensure division will be here this evening from around 12 to 3 p.m. today. I think at the elementary, Ms. Hamilton, correct me, you still need 5 teachers. Is that correct, Mrs. Hamilton?
That's correct. I'm looking to do some interviews. I have 5 candidates that I'm interviewing on Friday.
Right. So overall, after hearing that, we're looking much better. We are bringing in some teachers from the Philippines. We're working through that agency. We are trying to make sure that the teachers that we are bringing in are licensed. We have a couple of teachers that will be a waiver teacher, but Dcte will be here today, and they will be talking with them so we can immediately get them on a pathway. But overall, it's looking better than when we first started out trying to get teachers in here with that high volume of teachers retiring this year, large number.
Right. You said you were missing 5 at elementary. What about secondary? How many openings do you have?
Secondary, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we're set.
Okay.
We're set. We might need 1 social studies, perhaps.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that's an improvement. So.
What was that, Ms. Newton?
I said it feels like it's an improvement over what you've dealt with in past years.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It is an improvement. We have worked diligently to get the word out that we are here to work with you, to help you to get licensed. Of course, we want our students to have licensed teachers in those classrooms, and that continues to be our focus.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
And commitment. Thank you, Ms. Newton.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, then we are ready for a motion for Helena, West Helena, and I believe this one is also a 1 year.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Sutton,
Second.
seconded by Ms. McFetridge. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. English, and all of your
you so
staff that
much.
was with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm unsure if they were able to get someone from Clarendon or not. I know that they were trying to. So at this point, is there anyone from Clarendon on the, oh, I'm sorry, we hadn't done a motion. Y'all did the motion. Is there anybody from Clarendon on? Okay, so we just need to decide either to not vote on that one today or.
Okay. Dr. Moore, did you also have questions for Clarendon?
Yes, that was me that pulled it. I do have a number of questions. It seems to be that they're primarily doing asynchronous within district. And so I'm not ready to vote for them today. I think if others are, maybe the vote can go without my vote, but I'm not willing to vote on it until we understand more.
I think we would be okay since we're going to meet in the near future. We'll just hold that one until the next time because we'll probably have more applications coming.
It's only a handful that are coming. Most of them that were at the point where we weren't recommended, we're pulling them.
Okay.
So it could go on the August board meeting. They did say that they had found someone and they were trying to get them the link, but I'm not sure if that's 5 minutes they're going to pop up or 20 minutes they're going to pop up.
If we've got any other business to discuss, and if they're there before we adjourn, we'll pull them in. So, new business, Mr. Secretary.
Yes, members, today we have released a press release, and we will follow up with you with the summary that the assessment unit has completed on a first look at the ACT Aspire assessment results. I'll go over some of just the high points of this so you all are aware, and then of course we'll get this information out to you. Again, I think we've talked about this before. 97% of Arkansas students, grades 3 through 10, were tested. That is a tremendous response from our educators and our parents and our students in what everyone agrees was a very extremely difficult year. In our conversations with U.S. Department of Education, they told us that fewer than 5 states were expected to meet the 95% testing requirement, and we were one of those. So, starting off with the good news. The bad news is it's not unexpected. We did see declines across all grades. As expected, compared to the last administration in 2019, we did see a decrease in all levels, all grade levels, and all content areas. Math had the most significant declines.
That would be.
Sorry, Ms. Newton.
I know, but I was prepared. Yeah.
I know that that pains us all, but it's just the reality that we saw the greatest decline there, possibly attributed to the fact that the foundational skills build on each other, and when you lose the last 9 weeks of 1 year, it really sets the stage for that type of outcome in the following year. Grade levels, 3rd grade showed the greatest declines across all subjects. Again, that's not surprising. This would have been the first time these 3rd grade students have taken the test. We saw a similar impact or kind of a related impact to 4th grade. Again, they did not get to take the test in their 3rd grade year. So that's something we're definitely going to look at to see what type of response. In reading and English, in both these areas, the declines are similar, but they are not as significant as math, and some grades are showing only a decrease of 2 to 3 percentage points. So again, looking for those more positive stories, I think that's definitely attributed to our focus on RISE over the last number of years and providing more supports for our educators out there. Over the next few weeks, we will be looking at, and these are only state level numbers that we have now. Over the next few weeks, districts that increased or maintained, districts or regions with the most significant declines, and also modes of instruction. That's going to be a very important aspect of our analysis. Districts have their tests, their results available to them in their portal today, right, Dr. Pride? Okay, so districts will start having access and be able to break down their results on that district by district level. ACT for grade 11 will be available by August 1st. So any analysis on ACT will happen after we get that, of course. And then the graduating class of 2021, the ACT results there, that will be coming in early to mid-fall. Every year ACT comes to the department. We have a meeting to discuss their ACT condition report of the state, and after that they'll be making that public. So the information you get will have charts that show the trends for each grade level and the last 3 year comparison. So you will have that information before the end of the day to be ready if you have any questions or get any questions from constituents. And if you get any questions or have any questions yourself after reviewing the information, please let us know and we'll be happy to answer them. And Stacy or Dr. Pride, I don't know if y'all have any additional comments you want to make on that. Okay, but that's important information. It's timely, and we wanted you all to have that as part of today's meeting.
Does any of the board have questions or comments on that? Dr. Hill? Dr. Moore?
No.
Okay. Dr. Rankin?
Not at this time, no.
Mr. Sutton?
No, ma'am.
Ms. McFetridge?
No, thank you.
Ms. Steen? Ms. Post?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I think this was a day that we knew was coming, and we were prepared for it, but it's kind of one of those things you prepare for, and it's not pleasant, you know. And as a teacher, this would be one of the days that in the past that I've had a good cry, and then you get up and you go do what you got to do, and that's what we got to do, you know. We know this, you know, even though it's not the results that we would have hoped for, it gives us a starting point. We know what the problem is, and you know, it's kind of like when you go to the doctor, sometimes you don't always get the best news, but you figure out what the problem is, and then you make a game plan. How do you go forward? And that's what, you know, I think that educators all across the state will be doing today, is looking and seeing what do we need to do, and start making a game plan. How can we change this? And I don't have any doubt in my mind that teachers across the state are going to be up for the challenge. Administrators are going to be up for the challenge. And I know that your staff here at the department, y'all are up for the challenge, and you're going to do whatever it takes, because every one of us, what do we want? We want best for our kids. And they are our kids, no matter if they're in Clarendon, West Helena, Springdale, Little Rock, I don't care where they're at. They're all our kids, and we're going to do what's best for them and to move forward from here. And we can do it. We can do it.
Ms. Newton, the advantage that we have in this state over most of the other states is that because we tested 97%, we have a much clearer picture of the impact. Yes. Other states that did not test a high percentage, they're going to have more missing pieces of their picture. You know, this is no less, it's not, even though you expect bad news, it doesn't make it any less disappointing when you get it and it confirms what you suspected. I had some crazy optimism that we might see a little different story, and we might when you start looking at district level and building level. Right. So, you know, that's one of the things that we're very interested to see how districts and schools that may have a more mature implementation of some of the initiatives over the last few years, like the PLC initiative, like some of the work in RISE, some of the work in math, across the board, you know, that hopefully, you know, we're still thinking that we might see some good news out there and some examples of, okay, how did y'all not drop as much as the state average, and how can we direct other schools to talk to those educators and those school leaders on what they did, because the impact of COVID is going to be as I think equally devastating this school year if the numbers continue to go the way they're going now. Right? Let's just face the reality. we have fewer tools available to us now. You know, the one big tool we have available is the vaccine, and you know, we need a stronger participation rate there. And that's going to be a huge impact. But with the trends we're seeing now, we're prepared for another difficult year. In that difficulty, Ms. Newton, we agree. You know, their teachers will find ways to make this happen and give their students what they need. We want to support them in that. The analysis of this data will be an important step to helping get them what they need as we move forward. But I also want to brag on our team. I mean, as soon as this, now we weren't, let me say, when we extended the testing window by 2 weeks, we had to go back. ACT said, well, we might need until August 1st versus July 1st. Well, they were able to get this back, matching the 2-week extension of the testing window. Very positive. So now we have 2-3 weeks really before teachers come back in person that they can do some deep dives into this data. But our team has done a fabulous job. Rachel Horn, the assessment group, getting this information, breaking it down. Dr. Arola and her team also, they were prepared to instantly jump on this, and we're going to have some very good analyses that we'll be able to provide over the next several weeks.
Will we be able to tell which students were virtual and which? I know we've asked the same question over and over, but I'm still in this set of data. We'll be able to tell which students were virtual for most of the year and which students were on site for most of the year. I'm going to call on somebody to help me with that response.
Okay. So we're working with the Office of Innovation and Education, so Denise Arola's group, and that was one of the things we put in the contract this year, is to be able to pull the data down, because we did indicate students last year whether they were complete remote, hybrid, blended, or in person. But there's lots of variables with that, because you have kids who started the year virtual and then came back in person, and so that's going to take a little bit of time. But we do have the data sets. It's just a matter of lining them all up and then kind of, you know, fleshing out the rules as far as how we analyze that. So we should have something, but that's probably going to be the piece that takes the longest to get.
Okay. I just think as we're thinking about digital learning plans, and, you know, we have this one district that their students did really well remotely, but then another district is going to be able to look at it and say, well, our students didn't do so. Do we want to keep continuing to do this, you know, because our students that were remote did not perform like what we think that they should. And so and maybe that would be some examples of some ones that are doing a good job, that, you know, what did you do to help your students? And so if we could get that breakdown, I think that would help a lot of these districts that are looking at digital learning plans to make sure that if we are going to offer it, that it is a good, academically strong option for students.
Well, and I think too, locally, they're going to be able to break that down a lot faster than we're going to be able to break it down as a state.
Right.
And districts that had very large percentages of students who were virtual, or, I mean, the local district knows who their kids were. Yeah. And as they're getting in and diving into their data, in fact, if you were sitting in a classroom, and you would have been separating them out and figuring it out. Mm-hmm. So I do think at a local level, they'll start fleshing that out pretty quick. I do think it's a responsibility for us as districts that we see maybe had the largest impact or declines, that we get in there and help them, you know, discover some pieces. And if that is adjusting their current digital plans, because what they did last year didn't work and they're doing some of the similar things, then that's a responsibility on all of us to do. So I think there's much more to learn from what we just got.
Okay, so that brings another question. Plan, do, check. Plan, do, check. We've emphasized that since the beginning of ESSA. So we've approved these digital plans, and so once they've gotten data and they've looked at it and they've decided, well, I've checked, and so maybe my do needs to be different, will they have to come back to us?
I think it depends on what it is they're trying to modify. You know, I think that even in our classroom instruction, you know, there's always things you're giving and going and modifying. If they're changing something that directly is completely different from what you're proposed, from, for example, going from an asynchronous to, or synchronous to asynchronous, that's a sticking point that they would have to come and talk to the board about. If they were changing something as simple as all of our kids were registering at the beginning of the year and what you selected is what you selected and there was no give, and the district decided to do, no, we'll let you switch back and forth depending on what's going on, like maybe a semester or 9 weeks. That's just a simple thing that's probably not, it wouldn't have made a difference in the application. So if it's really kind of hitting their,
Well, maybe they were going to use a district curriculum and now they decided to go with a consortium or a vendor. That would have to come back to us.
Again, it depends on if it was school-wide or if it was a subject. I think if it is completely changing, overhauling the intent of the original application, it would need to come back.
Okay.
If a school district got in and they had originally come to the board and said, we're going to use this product's science curriculum for 3rd grade and 4th grade and 5th grade, and they got in there and thought, man, this 3rd grade science curriculum is terrible. We're going to make a switch. I don't think that would necessarily need to come back.
Okay. All right.
I
So
mean,
we'll just play it by ear.
But you might think it does. I mean, I think
Okay.
this is one of those.
We'll just figure it out as we go.
But to your point, we expect them to make adjustments and change if they determine that what they have planned that may look the same, that they realize, okay, that didn't work. We want them to change it. So thank you for bringing that to the attention. Hopefully that helps the folks that are out there listening understand that this board is interested in helping them make
Yes.
adjustments that are important to student success.
Yes.
Yeah, and these applications, we expanded the questions that were asked because of the number of students that are participating. But, you know, so it was atypical, some of the questions and some of the application, I mean, that you normally see for a 1240. So again, I agree with you. We expect them to continue to make improvements to make it better.
Okay. All right.
And we did have clarity on when y'all got to that
Okay,
point.
good. All right. Are there any other questions from the board on the test results? Okay. Is there someone on from Clarendon?
Yes.
Mr. Vint?
One second.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for joining us.
I'm sorry I was late. I was over to high school.
Not a problem. It worked out just fine. I think we've got some questions from the board about your digital learning plan. Dr. Moore.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for getting on today. I primarily had concerns around the asynchronous approach and why you all chose to go that route with your high school students.
Cameron, can you hear that question?
Could you repeat that, please?
Yes, they want to know about the asynchronous approach that we're utilizing and why we utilize that approach.
So we have a small staff, and this past year we were forced to do synchronous to allow for the students that needed to stay home due to COVID, and that was asking our teachers to really do double duty, teaching both in-person classes and synchronous classes with virtual students. And the teachers really, when we asked them how the year went, they really, that was their biggest complaint about that. And going forward with digital learning, we liked the option it allowed some students, but we didn't want to put that same level of pressure and expect that much out of our teachers. So the only way that we saw fit for our teachers was to offer the asynchronous option, so we're not asking our teachers to work double.
So in that sense, are your teachers managing the curriculum, or is there an outside entity doing that?
So we've been using Canvas for about 3 years now as a part of our School of Innovation plan, and teachers have been building their own curriculum in Canvas over the past several years. We've had very little turnover, so the same teachers that have been teaching physics have been teaching it for 3 years, and they have
a well-established online content management in Canvas. So that's how we chose to go with the teacher created, because our teachers had already put in so much work into making their classes. We will also offer virtual Arkansas courses for classes that we can't offer on campus. For example, we had some students request to take sociology and psychology. We don't offer that on campus, so we do use virtual Arkansas for courses that we don't have content created for, or classes that we don't have the capacity to offer.
Okay. Will you all provide any sort of office hours or time for students to interact with teachers to ask questions?
We have one person on staff who is the virtual learning facilitator. She used to be kind of the librarian. Now she's a virtual learning facilitator, and so she will take on the virtual students, and she will serve as their advisor, their liaison. She checks in with them every day. She does attendance for them. And then if the students need additional questions time with the teachers, then that is arranged into the RTI periods associated with each course. We operate on a flex mod schedule, and so one mod for every class is a RTI period. And so virtual students, that period is set aside. It's free for teachers to work with individual students that need help, and digital students can tap into that time for any additional work with the teacher specifically.
Okay. What percentage of your high school students were virtual this year?
Percentage?
Or I guess numbers, and do you expect numbers for the fall?
We started out the year with about 30, but we quickly found out that some students weren't able to operate in that environment, so we finished the year with about 7 high school students that were learning successfully online.
Okay, so do you expect that number to continue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Those were all my questions today.
Okay. I'm sorry if it's hard to hear me. I'm on a boat about 4 miles offshore.
All right, let's see if there are any other questions from the board. Dr. Hill? Dr. Rankin?
No.
Mr. Sutton?
No, ma'am.
Ms. McFetridge?
No, thank you.
Ms. Steen? Ms. Post?
No questions.
All right. All right, so we are ready for a motion for Clarendon, and let's see. Let's see where I'm at. Clarendon was for 3 years. Do we have a motion for Clarendon?
I move to
Motion to approve.
Okay, approved by Mr. Sutton, seconded by Ms. Steen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, do we have any other new business? Any public comments? All right, so any other discussion from the board? Okay, thank you all for joining us this morning. I know that you gave up another day, and I want you to know how much that we appreciate you doing that. So thank you. Have a good week. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
The recording has stopped.